finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized SEMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a SEMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the SEMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study Exam. Start studying the SEMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Good evening, professional colleagues, students, friend of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, friends of Chartered Accountants, students, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to another edition of ICAN on Air, powered by the Noble Institute, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. And I sincerely want to appreciate you for always tuning in every Tuesdays and Thursdays. And here is another edition for today, Thursday, the 4th day of the month of August, 2022. And I brought before you a very, very scintillating topic for today, Thursday. And we will be talking on leveraging technology to curb and corruption and illicit financial flow, the role of gatekeeper. Deep technology, corruption, illicit flow, financial flow. Then we now put it the goal of the gatekeeper. And it is my pleasure today to be guesting one of our regulars. Has been here and he has done justice when it comes to the issue of technology. A professional colleague of ours who has depth into IT with great experience, and it's no other person than Chimeka Ezeribe. He is a member of our great institute and has over 20 years of work experience spanning the public and the private sector. And he has moved in every department that you can talk about, spanning from tax administration, audit investigation, information technology, financial control, risk management. And currently, he works as the head of information system audit unit at the Federal Inland Revenue Services, where he's contributing immensely in automation, project and IT control. The immediate past president of ISACA Abuja chapter with over 400 members to himself. He has authored book, and each time he needs to take some time out, he's always out there to impart knowledge. He wrote a book on audit and assurance essential, which was published in 2018. Chimeka is a fellow and platinum member of the following professional body: the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, our own Noble Institute, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, the Information System Audit and Control Association, and the Association of Certified Fraud Examiner. Sincerely speaking, we have brought this our way because it seems to be the intake thing. Technology, and we want to see how we synergize it to curb that menace that we call corruption and illicit financial flow. I want you to get your pen, get your book, because it's going to be another educative session for us this evening. But before I bring in my guest, let me quickly go on a very short break. And when I'll be coming back, I will be coming in with our guest to do justice to the topic of today. Please stay tuned. I will be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back. And like I promised, I am in with our guest for today in person of Chimaka Ezeribe, FCA. Good evening and welcome to our show, a friend of the house.
Good evening, Session. Good evening, professional colleagues. It's my very happy to be here. My pleasure.
Thank you very much for honoring our invitation once again. So we'll go straight to the business, which is our topic for today, leveraging technology to curb corruption and illicit financial flow. Well, let me start with this: corruption, corruption, corruption. That is something that when you call, everybody wants to dissociate themselves with it because of the negative effects and correlation. Please, in a simple term, can you educate our viewers? What is corruption?
Um, Corruption, yeah, is one concept that we come across every day, as finance professionals. Even those that are not finance professionals come across with this term, corruption, especially if you are in a developing economy like Nigeria. There's
Mm,
hardly any day that goes by that you won't hear anything about corruption. People use it to describe those that they feel lack honesty, those that they feel that betrayed the trust that is placed on them, especially public sector workers. Maybe if you are those that are popularly referred to as public servants. But there is no better definition of corruption than the one given by Transparency International. Transparency International is seen as an authority when it comes to issues like this, and they simply define corruption as the abuse of entrusted power, for private gain. And we Nigerians, we can actually relate to with this kind of definition, because when we talk about corruption, all eyes are usually focused on the public sector, but we must also acknowledge that there is also a high level of corruption in other sectors, the private sector, and all that. But of course, the focus is usually on the public sector. And in Nigeria, it is something that has become a menace. It's something that has become troublesome for everyone. Everybody wants to look for way of stopping this corruption. Everybody preaches. Anybody you come across will preach, that he or she does not support corruption. But in actual reality, if you get involved in government circle or even private sector circle, you see that a whole lot of people are involved in corrupt practices. Maybe
mm,
because I would say maybe a category of the people that are involved in corrupt practices will be as a result of lack of knowledge, because a
mm,
whole lot of people do not understand what corruption really entails. Some
mm,
take corruption to be outright stealing, some take it to be um, conflict of interest issues. Some take it to be those that take kickbacks. Some take it to be those that take bribes. Some take it to be those that get involved in extortion. But these are different ways by which corruption manifests in our
mm,
day-to-day
mm, mm.
life.
Very, very deep, simple and deep, by telling us that it's not something that you have to go and study encyclopedia, but like the transparency initiative said it, that it is abuse of trust that is being given to you. And you said it's in the public sector, it's in the private sector. And it's more or less like an endemic that everybody tends to talk about, but we still find it difficult. And that's why we are trying to do what can technology do. But let me go straight to this. We have learned that corruption has led to the fall of great men and women, liquidation of big businesses, and even the collapse of great nations. Based on your vast knowledge and experience, how dangerous is this monster that no one wants to attribute or associate with, called corruption?
Yeah, corruption can actually be described as very dangerous, very destructive. You refer to it as a monster, and probably there's no better, way to describe it. Corruption is a monster, especially for developing economics. If you look at a place like Nigeria, we can actually attribute to most of this bad situation we are into today as a result of corruption.
Hmm,
One thing that is topmost in the mind of everybody in Nigeria today is high level of insecurity. Another
hmm,
would be, high level of debt. Another would be low level of revenue generation and all that. If you read newspapers or check the social media, you will see, complaints from several quarters, referring to the bad financial situation of the government. And one may be tempted to say, yes, government, as we are hearing today, does not have a lot of money, does not have money to address some issues, to provide the public good or infrastructure that are supposed to be provided for the citizens. And we can actually say that yes, the corruption might actually be responsible for this kind of messy situation that Nigeria, African countries, and some other developing countries found themselves in. Because what happens is that if a public servant is engaged in corruption, what really happens is that it takes away the money meant for providing services, government services, the money meant for providing infrastructure. A corrupt public servant would divert that money to his or her private pocket. And what that means is that the corrupt official will have a whole lot of money in his pocket, while there will be less money to provide the goods for the
hmm,
citizens.
hmm,
And that's the
hmm.
situation most countries find themselves. So, in
Since
general, you see that what corruption does is to divert all the money, majority of the money that's available for government expenditure to private pockets. I mean,
hmm,
put this money in the hands of very few people.
hmm. That is very, very deep, and it really shows how dangerous it is. Talking of our high level of insecurity, how we have actually plunged ourselves into high deep, and like you said in your word, no other thing responsible for this than corruption. Let me look at the second wing. We've just dealt with corruption. Let me look at the illicit financial flow. Scholars have added to the knowledge of what constitutes illicit financial flow, that is IFFS, such as that there are money that is illegally earned, transferred, or utilized if it breaks law into origin movement. Can you please help our viewers to have understanding on this expanded definition of illicit financial flow?
All right. Illicit financial flow, similar to corruption, is also a wide concept. Just like you said, it actually refers to the movement of money from one country to another. Most times, this money we are referring, the funds we are referring to, are actually funds earned illegally, maybe through corrupt activities, maybe through some transnational or transborder, criminal activities, or maybe through some kind of tax evasion schemes. You see that a corrupt person will get money, and when this corrupt person has a lot of money, most times after spending on frivolities, they will still have a whole lot of money in their hands. So most times they will begin to look at, what do we do with this money? And the next thing that will come to their mind is, let's move this money to a safer location. Let's move this
Hmm.
money to
Hmm.
a faraway country, a foreign land. And that's what brings illicit financial flow into play. So I can actually say that it is corruption that actually feeds illicit financial flow. So
Hmm.
without corrupt activities, without corrupt practices, um, those working in public sector and private sector will not have this kind of slush fund, or a lot of money that they most times they don't even know what to do with the money. And that's what really pushes them to begin to think about those countries that we refer to as safe havens. So how do we
Hmm.
move this money to those safe havens? They engage the services of maybe money launderers, they engage the services of cash smugglers, and ask them to get this money off their hand and take it to a safer place. Those places we refer to as safe havens. And that's
Hmm.
illicit financial flow. So, but sometimes illicit financial flow also involves moving around money that is legally earned. Okay, you see a company that have made profit from their normal, business activity, but they look for a way of, rather than putting that profit back to the business or distributing it to shareholders as expected, they look for ways of, pushing some of those profits out of the shores of the land. And you know what happens if you are a company that is in Nigeria and you have made, for an instance, 100 million naira profit for a particular year, and it is expected that you put some of this money back. And if you put some of those money, you return those part of the money back to the business, what it means is that you are going to expand your business and create more employment, and possibly do some corporate social responsibilities, things that are beneficial to the Nigerian society. Or you pay this money to shareholders who are possibly Nigerians, who are also going to use this to create some other kinds of activities. All these things will help to build the GDP of Nigeria. But when such a company tries to move that legally earned profit to a foreign land illegally, we also refer to it as illicit financial flow. So it is not
Very,
just
very,
about, yes, it's not just about moving illegally earned money. It's not just about moving proceeds of crime. It also includes moving legally earned money in a
very,
wrongful way.
very, very, very deep. So both legal and illegal, if it is not done in a proper way to make sure that those that we call the beneficiary of those social contracts with the government or the people in your environment, you are actually committing illicit financial movement when you move those corrupt and decayed money. While we proceed on this, let me quickly tell our viewers that we have an interactive session in which we expect you to bring in your questions, bring in your observations as we proceed on the topic of today. And I'm sure our guest is fully prepared to do justice to this. Mr. Ezeribe, let me quickly ask, how dangerous are illicit financial flow, and to what degree or extent have they destroyed or affect the financial fortune of individuals, corporate bodies, nations, and even the world? How deep?
All right, how dangerous? The dangers economies suffer from corruption are not, much different from that of illicit financial flow. But the difference would be, if people make money from corruption and return that money in that particular jurisdiction, we can still say, oh, that economy or that jurisdiction will still benefit from the corrupt practices of individual or companies. So, but for illicit financial flow, what happens is that this money is taken out of, that particular country, and that country is denied of the resources that should have ordinarily been used to enhance the welfare and life of its citizens. So illicit financial flow is can actually be said to be more dangerous than mere corrupt, activities. But of course, two of them cannot be really separated that much. There's a thin line between the two. When people make money from corruption, like I said earlier, most times they make much more money than they need to spend. So
Mm,
the
mm,
next thing that will come to their mind is, how do we keep this money safe? How do we maintain control of this money in the long term? And that's what pushes them to begin to look for those that will help them to push this money to foreign land. So illicit
mm,
financial flow (IFFs) are could be said to be more dangerous than, mere corruption, because
mm,
um, a country like Nigeria or some other African countries, we have seen statistics that show that what we have lost through illicit financial flow is much more than what we have gained through aids, charitable donations,
mm,
foreign direct
mm,
investment, grants that come from, the foreign countries. And that is why a
mm,
lot of people believe that countries like Nigeria or other African countries don't actually need aid. We don't need grants from the developed economies, because the continent is so blessed that we can actually feed ourselves. We can actually generate resources. We can generate revenues that is and are enough to take care of, the citizens of Africa, the citizens of Nigeria. So, but this problem of illicit financial flow has damaged the African continent so much that, in fact, if you look at some studies that have been conducted by AU and some other bodies, you see that the African continent has lost over 50 billion US dollars. The
mm,
African continent loses about 50 billion US dollars on an annual basis. And
mm,
in the
mm.
last 50 years, it was estimated that Africa has actually lost about $1 trillion. And this is
Deep, deep.
much more than what we have gotten in terms of aids, in terms of grants, foreign direct investment, and all that. So, and the irony of it is that when we get involved in this illicit financial flow, money simply moves from countries that need it most, developing economies, developing countries like Nigeria, to countries that we can say don't need this money. Because
Mm, mm.
most of these funds move from places like Nigeria or other African countries to developed economies. We know those places we refer to as safe havens without mentioning them, but most of them, majority of those places we refer to as safe havens, are
They don't need it.
highly developed, and
Hmm.
sincerely, they don't need our money.
See, this is where we found ourselves. Just like you taking something to someone who is already, overfed and thinking you are doing yourself a harm, causing more damage, even to the future of unborn children. While we proceed, I've seen people alluding to some of your submission on this topic today. Uh, Mr. Izeribe, according to UNACTA, to curb this illicit financial flow, Countries should collect more and better trade data, close loopholes in tax treaties, and strengthen regulatory framework. Please, highlight for us, how can we accomplish these three objectives in Nigeria as a nation?
Hello, go through those objectives again. There was a break.
Okay, the three objectives that I'm talking about is that to curb this IFF, we are expected to have a good and better trade data, close loopholes in the tax treaties, and strengthen the regulatory framework. How can we accomplish these three objectives in Nigeria?
All right, I got that now. Looking at our topic is actually more about leveraging on technology, technology solutions to solve this problem of corruption and illicit financial flow. So I can actually say, talking about data, I can actually say there is no technology solution that you will implement or you will develop either locally or the one you get off the shelf from elsewhere that will be effective if we don't have the correct set of data.
Mm,
See, if there is something we are lacking here in Nigeria, it is having a good database of transactions as they happen.
mm, mm,
What am I
mm,
saying? Technology solution data is like the fuel that powers technology solution, that powers applications. So no technology solution will be very effective if we don't have good set of data. I have seen cases where the law enforcement agencies, EFCC, maybe ICPC, is investigating on a case of corruption, and they struggle with, assembling data. I have seen cases
mm,
where they try to, when they have a petition about a corrupt practice somewhere in a particular, let's say, government parastatal, they will try as much as possible to assemble data by making photocopies, manual copies of documents, and all that. But that simply shows that we do not have
mm,
the technology solution to deal with this issue, which actually is supposed to ride on a complete set of data. If you
mm,
go to some other economies in the developed world, you will see that they have taken their time to build database of transactions. So as
mm,
transactions are happening in every sector, especially starting with the government sector, in all the MDAs, as the transactions are happening, we have a central repository of these transactions. So assuming that the EFCC or ICPC wants to investigate a particular case of corruption, they don't need to start making manual records or start asking so much questions, because they should ordinarily have access to that central repository of transaction as they happen. You see, part of the way by which these corrupt activities manifest is in Nigeria is through over invoicing.
mm,
I was in an event yesterday where it was mentioned that over invoicing constitutes a large chunk of corrupt activities that happen in Nigeria, especially in the
mm,
public sector. You see,
mm,
transactions, contracts being awarded at overinflated prices.
mm,
And this is something that the law enforcement agencies can actually pick on their own if we try to automate the processes of awarding contracts or procurement processes and all that. So our procurement or purchases information system should actually be centralized, and we should also have data set of um, the fair prices of different kinds of transactions that government could go into. Whether the
mhm,
government parastatal is buying goods or services, we should have fair prices of those kind of transactions. So if the government public servants in Nigeria know that there is a central database of the prices of items that could be purchased or services that they might want to go into, then they will be highly discouraged from going into such
perpetrating it.
practices. So that
Hmm.
is to talk about data set. And I would really be recommending, strongly recommending, for Nigeria to begin to set up, a central database of transactions that occur. So we will have transactions that occur at various ministries, various departments and agencies, being centralized in a particular database. So that, and law enforcement agencies, the police, the EFCs and all that will be given access to that database. They can
Hmm.
see it, they can share information on it, and they can raise queries from what they see as transactions that emanate from different MDAs.
Very
Even we can
brilliant.
also do something like that for the private sector.
Very
Okay, so
brilliant.
of course it should start with the um, government agencies and parastatals. Okay,
Very,
so
very deep.
you also talked about tax treaties. Part One of the ways by which this illicit financial flow manifests is through tax related activities. Some
Hmm.
of us in the tax environment know that some companies try as much as possible to avoid paying the right amount of tax. And you get to see some companies that engage in what we call base erosion and profit shifting schemes. You see companies that try to move away some of the profits made in Nigeria, move them away from Nigeria to other countries of the world, possibly in those countries where you have less um, company income
Tax
tax
rate.
rate. So
Yeah.
they wouldn't want to pay the high level of tax, or in a country like Nigeria, if they see that the tax rate in Nigeria is higher than what is obtainable elsewhere. So you see them adopting a lot of schemes to move
Yeah.
profits that are legally earned in Nigeria to some other jurisdictions. So tax treaties can actually help, okay, to create visibility in terms of these transactions. It can also help us in terms of solving this problem, because if you have a tax treaty between country A and country B, what it means is that it helps to reduce issues of double taxation and all that. So we
Yeah.
can actually say tax treaty can help to reduce the tendency, to which people, get involved in these corrupt practices and illicit financial flow. You
Very,
also talk
very,
about
very fluid.
strengthening the regulatory
Regulatory
environment.
framework. Yeah.
Yes. What One of the things that is working against developing economies like Nigeria is the fact that we know that in these developing economies we have what you can generally say to be weak regulators, weak regulatory environment. Okay, so if the regulators are weak in terms of doing what they are supposed to do in terms of monitoring or overseeing the activities within the particular sector they are supposed to um, oversee, then it becomes a bit of motivation for the criminal minded people who may want to get involved in corruption or illicit financial flow, because they will believe that when they move money, when they attempt to move money away from one jurisdiction to another, they are not likely to be caught. Or when they are eventually caught, that there will be less consequences. So those are the kind that indirectly motivate the criminally minded people to engage in some of these practices. So of
Very,
course, again, we would recommend that we really need to strengthen our regulatory institutions.
very, very deep. Very, very deep. Talking about data as the oil to technology, of which we'll be going into in not too much time. Automation. And again, having the treaty will support curbing some of these menace and this monster we call corruption and the illicit flow. I've seen the Olusoji ask a question, and Fagbola, I'm going to consolidate their question with what I'll be asking you now. You have said so much about the issue of illicit financial flow, how this menace is affecting us. Are there technologies that we can deploy or leverage upon to halt this project, this process, this menace that we are faced with, to eliminate such financial crime. And I think I will collaborate it with what Soji is asking, that what exactly can we do differently? And I want to take it from the perspective of technology. What are the mechanism of technology that we can develop or leverage upon to curb this menace?
Yes. What we can do differently? Good question. And that is what should be the takeaway from this kind of discussion. And I would say simply, what we can do differently is embracing technology. Sincerely, the truth is that most corrupt activities and illicit financial flow um, still happen through our financial system and can actually be tracked. That is the truth. So, and we cannot track or monitor these things properly if we do not deploy the right, mix of technology. And I'm actually
Mm.
an advocate of homegrown technology. We can actually come together to, come up with technology solutions that will help us to not eliminate, because it is not likely to be possible that you eliminate completely corruption or illicit financial flow. But we need to do things that will help us to reduce them to a very
The
minimal
barest
level.
minimum.
Yes. So talking about technology solutions now, there are so many solutions we can go for, but I will talk about three of them. I will concentrate my suggestion on three technologies that can be of help, and one of them is the blockchain technology. Yes, it is a new technology, but one of the potentials, the biggest potential that comes from this new technology called blockchain technology, is transparency. So if you want to counter corruption or illicit financial flow, you need to enhance or widen transparency on transactions. So, and the blockchain technology being a distributed ledger of transactions that gets every party that is involved in a transaction involved in validating and recording those transactions. What it does is to make transactions open, an open field, because it requires, for transactions to be recorded and validated, it requires the in a kind of consensus from all the parties involved. So blockchain technology is one technology that creates that kind of um, transparency that is needed to discourage those that may want to go into corruption
Mm.
or
Mm.
illicit financial flow. Let
Mm.
me try to practicalize this. Earlier today I talked about one of the biggest corrupt activities we are having in Nigeria is over invoicing. So a particular ministry tries to, procure something, award a contract on that, something that should probably would have been bought for 100 million. You will see that government agency awarding that contract for, let's say, 300 million, meaning that has been overpriced by 200 million.
200
So
million.
yes, but assuming government transactions are done within a blockchain solution, what it means is that as this transaction is to be consummated, every party to the transaction, the seller, the buyer from the government end, all other parties, the tax authorities, will be part of it.
Mm.
So
Mm.
everybody, even the law enforcement agencies, EFCC and all the rest, will be part of it. The Federal Minister of Finance will be part of it. The Accountant General, the Auditor General Office will be part of those transactions. And that's the kind of thing that blockchain technology creates. Yes, we acknowledge that this technology is one that is still not as advanced as it should be,
Mm.
but a
Evolving.
lot of countries are already using it to create the high level of transparency and visibility that is required in government circles to reduce
Mm.
the menace of corruption and its broader illicit financial flow. So that's blockchain technology one. The other one is artificial intelligence. We can tap into artificial intelligence by, Nigeria is so blessed that we have some local guys here. We have some of our citizens who are so good in programming and other kinds of areas of other aspects of developing a technology solution. So we can actually create homemade solutions that would be powered by artificial intelligence algorithm, machine learning algorithm, that will help us to be able to identify patterns in our transactions. What do I mean? Patterns in transactions, government transactions, private sector transactions that indicate corruption, that indicate collusion, that indicate illicit activities. So I usually say that there is no corrupt activity that will happen in Nigeria today that has not happened elsewhere. There is no illicit financial flow that will happen that will have not happened elsewhere. So we can take a cue from what has happened elsewhere to use it to develop our own local technology solutions here, which will help to, you know, help us to identify or detect frauds as they occur, corruptions as they occur. So the major thing or benefit you're going to get from solutions that are powered with AI is identifying, you can easily identify transactions that are unusual, transactions that indicate, or those ones that you can describe as red flag to corrupt activities and all that. So if you build a solution that is that good, which will ride on a robust or comprehensive database. Earlier today I talked about having a very robust database of transactions that happen. So you will be able to easily, on your own, have the machine flag transactions that are likely to be leads to
Be
corruption.
out of space. Be out of
Yes.
space.
So that's what AI can do for us. The other technology I can also talk about that Nigeria can leverage on is social media mining. Okay, the social media is one that the social media space contains, a whole lot of information. So we can actually leverage on the information you have on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all that to be able to track these corrupt activities. Because what happens is that those that are engaged in corrupt activities are actually human beings, and these people and their friends are on social media. So through social media monitoring, through social media, mining of data in social media, we could be able to identify those that are involved, or identify even some of these corrupt activities before they happen. Because the truth is that people go on social media and post a whole lot of things that could be a lead for law enforcement agencies to be able to
Yeah,
track.
to track, to
Yes.
very track them. You have
Remember,
actually done justice to these three technologies. Sorry, I have to interject you there. Talked about blockchain, AI, and social media mining. These are technologies that we can leverage on. Let me bring this in, that most vulnerable sector. It is said that the financial illicit financial flow in developing countries are from the extractive industry. Therefore, the logical question is, what makes Nigeria extractive industry so vulnerable to illicit financial flow?
all right. The extractive industry is one that is very prone, very susceptible to illicit financial flow, very also susceptible to um, corruption. And if one is asking, why is it so? I can actually blame that on what you hinted on earlier, which is weak regulatory environment. I
Mm,
actually think
mm.
that the regulation or the regulatory authorities that oversee the extractive industry in Nigeria they're not as strong as it should be. And like I said earlier, when you have weak regulatory institutions, what that does is to encourage, is to motivate the bad guys, to go into some of these illegal activities. So again, in Nigeria, we have heard a lot about information that Nigeria does not actually know. how much crude oil is produced on daily basis, how much gold is mined, on daily basis, what is
Particularly.
the quantity of other minerals. Nigeria is so blessed that virtually every state in this federation has one mineral deposit or the other. So, but what is the quantity of mineral deposit that we mine on daily basis?
No
You
answer
see,
to that.
so no straight answer. Nobody can beat his chest and tell you this. So these are some of the things that are encouraging. You only hear about some mining activities when maybe there is an attack on a mining facility, and everybody around that will be, oh, do you mean there's actually a mining facility in our community?
Is
I've had
very
somebody.
much here.
Yes. So these are things that.
Let me quickly interject your thoughts there. I need to go pay some commercials, and that's to tell you that I need to go on a very short break. And I want to believe that our viewers have actually been having a feel, even from our guest for today, Mr. Chibeka Izeribe, FCA. I will be back as we will be gradually winding up the program for today. Stay connected.
As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized SEMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a SEMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the SEMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the SEMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And we have been talking on the issue that borders around corruption, leveraging on technology to curb corruption and illicit financial flow, the role of a gatekeeper. And I will be going to the last segment by engaging our guest today, Mr. Chimeka Ezeribe. As professional accountants, we are definitely having a role to play as gatekeeper. Advise us what unique or additional skill, stroke knowledge should we use to further arm ourselves in order to remain on top of this fight against illicit financial flow.
All right. Yeah. I, I was actually in an event again yesterday where it was said that corruption and illicit financial flow would not happen without the accountants having knowledge of it. So accountants must recognize themselves as one of the gatekeepers. Sometimes when we say gatekeepers, people make references to law enforcement agencies only. But accountants who are practitioners, who are in business, those accountants, you work in banks, you work in some of these regulatory institutions, and you see these transactions. Accountants in your area of business, you see corruptions happen. And one of the things that lead to corruption is not having the courage to say no to corruption, not having the courage to stop corruption. Because, corruption is widely condemned in Nigeria. But who will bear the cat? Who will say no? Who will stop this corruption? Can it actually start from me? When I see corruption happening in my office, when I see corruption happening around me, what do I do? Do I have the courage to actually say no? Yes, one may blame this on weak regulatory environment we have, because a few years ago, the Federal Minister of Finance came up with this whistleblowing policy. But I'm also aware that there is a whistleblowing act that is before the National Assembly. Hopefully, when that is passed, we will have more protection for those that may want to blow the whistle. And I would sincerely encourage accountants to, try to blow, whistle as as much as they can, because that is probably the way to go to help to stop this menace. But again, why do accountants lack courage to help out in curbing this problem? It could be, oh, maybe some accountants have what you can call low sensitivity to ethical principles. Okay, during
Mm,
our study as accountants, we were, well informed about, the fundamental principles that guide what we do. And of course, for accountants, integrity is key. And you cannot say to be an accountant who have integrity if you cannot, say no to corruption, if you cannot stay with your convictions, if you cannot say yes, this is red and this is yellow, this is black. So accountants are in, we are occupying vintage position that make us to see these things as they happen. And we must help this economy, we must help Nigeria to stop this illicit flow. We must help
mm.
this country to reduce the level of corruption that are being perpetrated by the criminally minded people. So accountants should
As
begin to embrace more of our principles and begin to have less greed. Because the truth is that money that comes from corruption and illicit financial flow can actually be sweet to spend. It can be
mm,
sweet to spend. So you must have that courage, you must have that integrity to be able to say, no, I don't
mm,
need this kind of money. And if I see
mm.
somebody who says this is the kind of money he wants to make, then I should be able to blow the whistle.
Speak when you are supposed to speak. And I think while you are addressing that, you are able to touch on Dr. Abel as saying, talking about the place of professional ethical code in fighting against corruption. Let's remember the principle of the ethical code that will thought have that will to say no. Self-discipline, it will go a long way. Time is not always our friend. But in closing, I want you to give a general assessment of the fight against corruption and illicit financial flow by the Nigerian agencies and bodies such as the EFCC, ICPC, the Nigerian Police Force, and the judiciary. In 1 minute, just give us your own general assessment of these agencies.
All right. I think they are doing a lot. The law enforcement agencies are doing a lot. But like I said at the beginning, from my own assessment, the biggest problem they have is lack of robust data sets. And I will urge them to invest some level of fund into creating a robust data set. We need a
Mm,
central system in Nigeria. We need a central system of robust data set of transactions that occur within the government sector. Without that, they will continue to face challenges. But other challenges they have could have to do with maybe human capacity in terms of having the required level of competence to dig deep into this corrupt activity, because those that are involved in corruption and illicit financial flow take a lot of steps to cover their tracks. So it
mm.
requires somebody who have a higher level of competence to uncover what they have
Yes,
covered.
some of the things.
Yes. So I will also be, advising them to help to train their staff or engage more hands of those that have the skill to uncover the sophisticated means by which these people, cover their tracks. Very
What a
important.
What a very beautiful way to close the session this morning, addressing us that the agencies need to have a robust central database, at least to collate it, and also improve the human capacity so that we can have a lot to do. Curb this minutes so that we can develop ourselves, develop our nation, and be a great one. On this note, I sincerely want to appreciate our guest today, Mr. Chimeka Ezeribe, FCA. You have done justice to this today, and I know our members have learned one thing or the other. If not for anything, have that self-discipline as a professional. Remember the ethical codes as professional accountants. Say no to it. Be the first change. Be the first one to oppose this corruption and the future of the unborn children would definitely appreciate us. I appreciate you, our guests, and all our viewers for being part of the program today. I believe we have learned a lot, we have gained a lot, and definitely you'll be preparing yourself to be with me again next week, Tuesday. But before I go, let me quickly remind you that the 52nd Annual Accountant Conference will be coming up October 10 to 14. How prepared are you? Have you registered? Let me tell you one thing. We have packaged a lot of things to educate us, to enlighten us. And I can assure you, security is tight, even on our part, as we hold that our institute will always protect the interests of their members. Go online to our website to register for this. We have about 67 days to go, and I know you won't want to miss this 52nd Annual Accountant Conference. Also, the World Congress of Accountants holding in Mumbai, India is on. It will be coming up in November. Register. Log on to our website. Get every information. Equip yourself so that we can be better off on it. On this note, I will be winding up for the program for today. I remain your host, Olusegun Okwade. See you next week Tuesday, by God's grace. Bye for now.